I've always felt that my willingness to succeed gives me the ability to, my willingness to fail gives me an ability to succeed. When I started the biofuels effort, and we can go back to the early days, Harvard Business School did a case on the Khosla Ventures biofuel strategy. Right at the top of the case, before they started the introduction, they put this quote from me: "My willingness to fail gives me the ability to succeed." I fundamentally decided a long time ago I wouldn't care about any failure. I wouldn't care about what others thought. I wouldn't care, I would only care about what I thought was worth trying and just do it. I also think, and this is a very important part of failure for me, that I don't mind failing, but if we succeed, it better be worth succeeding, which is the flip side of failure, which sort of explains my attitude.
What do you mean by worth succeeding?
I was just getting to it. You know, I find most people, especially in the venture community, in the financial community, try and reduce risk, which is a good thing generally, but most people reduce risk to the point where what you're doing is so riskless that when you succeed, it's inconsequential. So in the process of reducing risk, they reduce the consequences of success to inconsequential. And this is why it becomes important to take the risks and not be afraid of failure, and to truly talk about what happens when you take those risks.
I guess if you don't have any, you're doing it wrong. And obviously it means you have to reach out to as many people as you can. And in the beginning for us, it was a matter of finding, for us, our user acquisition is very different than what you would originally sort of perceive as being a organic acquisition process for like an app. And as a network, we have a chicken and egg, where we have both game developers that we have to bring on board to sort of integrate our SDK, and on the other end, brands that are able to give rewards. And so the game developers, basically, it was just, in the chicken and egg aspect, you have to have either the chicken or the egg. And so you have to go pummel one and drive a truck at it. And we decided to go after the game developers first because we realized that the value was the most intense for them. The proposed value was, you know, you get rewards that you basically are able to reward your players with real rewards from top brands, and you're able to earn money off of that. But then the question was, like, you don't have any rewards, how can you know, how does this work for us? And so we decided to foot the bill for our first set of rewards first, and use that as the way we sort of accelerated the acquisition on the developer side. So we just did what we could to make it work. And it wasn't exactly the prettiest way to do it, but it was a way, and we did it, and it worked.
That we were able to have so many bullets, basically, because our burn rate was nothing. We were basically operating out of my apartment down in Austin, Texas. And we just woke up every day in our PJs, coded for 17 hours, and then went to bed. And you know, we didn't have an office. We just ordered like Chinese food and eat ramen. So we had, you know, and I only had $8,000 in savings when I started doing this.
And at that point, you make a lot of split-second decisions about how much you're going to raise, what the valuation ends up sort of becoming. For me, it was a 15-second conversation, the valuation with the angel investor on the other side of the table. So I think, like, ultimately, it's not as much about optimizing for how much money you raise or valuation that much ahead of time. It's about what you said about focus. Don't think about the valuation or the amount of money you need to raise until it's time to do that. And before that, just focus entirely on whatever your core goals are, like user acquisition or whatever.
My social network, I put a question out on Facebook and Twitter, and I asked this question: what do you see as the value of failure? I want to see what my friends thought. And on Facebook, I actually got a ton of responses as to the value of failure. And I pulled out the top two. Jeremy said, failure helps you understand who you really are. And Marco went on to say, it takes you one step closer to success. Now, one of the best responses I got on Twitter was from the RISD admissions office. They said, a spectacular failure is always better than a mediocre success. So as I started to poke around the internet a little bit more, I discovered other themes around failure. Here's the author of Harry Potter talking about the benefits of failure. There's dozens of blogs dedicated to this topic, and even more books that talk about celebrating failure. In fact, one of my favorite companies, IDEO, they encourage their employees to fail sooner so they can succeed sooner. Fail often so you can succeed sooner. Just last week, Fast Company published this article about having to fully confront failure before you can succeed. So failure is becoming a pretty popular topic.
If you don't marry the two, you can't understand the full extent of how people are using your product. So my example here is the Facebook Groups product. And this is the Groups product that we introduced maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure if you guys remember it, but the reason that we built this product is because we really wanted to provide users with a communication tool for them to communicate with groups of people that they cared about. So we envisioned people making a group for their family, we envisioned people making a group for their club soccer team, sort of like these smaller communities that they would want to communicate with on a regular basis. So post-launch, we looked at the data like we often do at Facebook, and everything looked great. People were creating groups, people were using them a lot, like everything was great, and we were like, great, success. And then, and then we started to see something really interesting in the data, which is that people were creating groups that were 10,000 people in it, 100,000 people in it, and our technically we were not ready for that, and we weren't able to support that. But we were also confused, why were people creating these groups? So we did some qualitative research to really understand what was going on. And it turned out that they were not using them for the reason that we built the groups tool for. They were using them more for badges. They were creating groups that were called, I am not a morning person, and hundreds of thousands of people were joining that group because they really, that said something about them. Or, they were joining causes groups, like 100,000 people or 1 million people against breast cancer. And, without actually looking at the qualitative data, we would not have understood that it was actually filling a need, it just wasn't the need that we built the product for. So
it's very easy to get in this mode of debating. And so, with the project I was mentioning earlier, we had a lot of opinions about what was going on. And some of them were like, well, this type of person does this, or this type of person does that, or this type of site looks like this. And it actually took us a lot of work to get some of that data, because we had to look through every single type of site that signed up for our product. So instead, someone came up with a brilliant idea of it wasn't me, but a brilliant idea of actually asking the customer. And that actually stopped a lot of this debating and a lot of this hard work we had to do to actually determine the answer to this question.
Oh, there have been a couple. One was we originally thought that the service, which is a hosted collaboration service, was going to be advertising supported. And we started getting increased traffic. We got lots of page views. I had Google AdSense there. We optimized it. And at the end of the month, we had $500. And I decided, well, it'd probably be prudent to run some napkin math and figure out how could we make this into a $100 million a year business? Like, how many people would need to be using my service to make this a big company? And the answer was pretty much every group on the planet would need to have internet access and be using us daily. And so I figured that's not a plausible movie to hit fast forward on. So maybe I ought to adjust models.
And so, in terms of adjusting models, Peter, you said that there's a difference between a pivot that's based on market demand and something that's just an example that you're floundering. How do you tell the difference as a VC?
Well, we're wrong frequently, first of all. But, we invest at a seed stage in a team and a core technology. We have some assumptions going in about what we think the right target application is. But until we get out into the marketplace and really test it with customers, we don't know whether those assumptions are right or not. And when we go into the marketplace and find that, frankly, the folks we thought would care don't, we have a choice to make. We can either pivot and try to apply that technology or that solution to a different market or bail out. And not only is it difficult for a board of directors and kind of a relationship between the board and the entrepreneur, but it's a difficult dynamic inside of a partnership where you have a portfolio. There's different companies, frankly, competing for capital. And so not only do the board and the entrepreneurs need to convince themselves, but then each venture firm needs to be convinced, or a subset of those venture firms need to be convinced to keep funding that company. So we try to spend a lot of time with the entrepreneur along the way, so we understand why the original market didn't pan out, understand the rationale behind the pivot. Sometimes we'll bring in an advisor or one of our other partners to kind of take a less emotional look at the situation and try to help the board member to figure out whether they've just gotten too close to it. And you know, we try to invest in some deep intellectual property so that if we decide we do want to pivot, then we have an asset that we can take into the new market.
It's very dangerous to raise a shit ton of money before you actually figured out your business model. Like, you can raise a seed round and you know, you can have a few guys or a few guys and girls, and you figure out your business model, and then it makes sense to go and raise a shit ton of money. There's a saying that, like, if you raise money, a lot of it, you don't know what you're going to spend it on. You've already sold your company, you just don't realize it. Because when you have all this money and you're not like scrappy and trying to figure it out, you start to make different decisions that you just wouldn't make if you didn't have a bank account with all these zeros in it.
Ethan, would you say that Flowtown was scrappy and had to figure it out? And if so, how did you do it?
I mean, we were bootstrapped for 13 months. We didn't raise like any significant amount of money until we actually were profitable. When we came out with the product, we were a B2B product, and so it's like, you know, you're not going to charge for it and make money. Who exactly are you selling to? If you're selling businesses have budgets, they should be paying. So it's a little bit different, but even to a consumer, I mean, you can look at a lot of companies, I can only reflect on my own, but if you just look at Instagram, you know, they really figured something out before they went and raised $8 million. Whereas maybe a company like Color went out and had great DNA, but they raised $40 million before they really knew what their model was. And now you could argue Instagram doesn't really have a model, it's not making money yet, but the important part of their model is definitely figured out, which is what value are we delivering to users, and how do we reach those users, and then let's make that scale as vast as possible.
The thesis of this speech or presentation is basically I'm submitting my application for the non-luckiest entrepreneur of the year. Unlucky means you got unlucky, like you can't sell a company and say you're unlucky. But I'd like to say I sold a company and worked so hard and excuse me, I drink a lot of Diet Coke. Worked so hard and saw so much failure in doing so that it makes me the non-luckiest entrepreneur. I will go up against any of you here, and I guarantee you I am more non-lucky than any of you.
I have this amazing friend, and she works for this company, and you use their stuff every day. It's either online or an app. It is one of the places to work for. You see a job listing, you want to work there. And my friend is equally incredible. She's one of these people never really on the job market because somebody she used to work with is always like waiting right there to pluck her off to help their next venture. And she managed a lovely team, and one night could not go to a company work event. And later that night, people on her team, young women, 22 years old, first job out of college, text messages her and says, the CEO and second in command are shoving ice down the shirts and pants of female employees.